I remember the exact moment I realized my family never saw me as one of their own. It wasn't a huge dramatic scene or some explosive argument. It was quieter than that. Subtle, almost forgettable. But that's the thing about betrayal. It rarely starts with fireworks. More often, it creeps in slowly, hiding behind years of polite smiles and half-truths until one day you look around and realize you're standing on a bridge your family already burned while you were still trying to build it. My name's Eric. I'm 25. Grew up in a smallish town where everyone knows your name, your parents' business, and what you got on your SATs. I'm the older twin by 8 minutes, though you'd never guess it based on how our family treats us. My brother, Evan, always got the spotlight. He was the charming one, the golden boy, played quarterback in high school, homecoming king, all of that. Me? I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the kid who helped mom with groceries and stayed up late tutoring Evan when he couldn't figure out his math homework. And I didn't mind it, not at first. Being the background twin had its perks. I could do my own thing, stay out of trouble, dream my own dreams without anyone breathing down my neck. But as we got older, the imbalance grew, and it became harder and harder to ignore. My parents aren't bad people, not in the classic storybook villain way. They didn't lock me in a basement or tell me I was worthless. They just overlooked me. Constantly. If Evan brought home a B+ on a test, they'd throw a little party, saying things like, "See, we knew you could do it." If I got an a quick nod. Maybe a "good job, Eric," before moving on. Christmas gifts were always lopsided. Evan got the newest tech, gaming consoles, expensive jackets. I got books. Not that I don't like books, but you notice when one kid gets a drone and you get a second-hand Kindle. College was supposed to be my big break. I'd worked hard all through high school, aced my AP classes, and even got into one of the top engineering programs in the state. I had dreams, real ones. My plan was to graduate, get into robotics, maybe even launch a startup one day. I'd been told my whole life that hard work pays off, that if you keep your head down and do the right thing, life rewards you. So I kept my head down, and I worked. I didn't party. I didn't skip class. I didn't ask for much. There was a college fund my grandparents had started when we were born. They put in equal amounts for both me and Evan. My parents had access to it, and they always reassured me that it was untouched. "It's all there for you, honey," my mom would say. "We're so proud of you." So imagine my surprise when, 3 months before the semester started, I called the financial aid office to confirm my tuition would be covered, and they told me the payment never came through. Confused, I called my mom. She sounded weirdly chipper when she answered. "Oh, Eric, sweetie, I've been meaning to talk to you about that," she said, like she was mentioning the weather. "We had to dip into your fund for something important." I remember standing in my crappy summer job's break room, sweating in my wrinkled polo, clutching the phone tighter. Dip into it? For what? There was a pause. Evan's wedding. Silence. The kind that crushes your lungs. What? They wanted a destination wedding, honey. Italy. You should see the venue. It's stunning. And Evan didn't have enough saved up, so we figured, well, you've always been the independent one. That sentence. That smug, proud little sentence. As if independence was my reward. As if I should be grateful I wasn't their priority, like that somehow made me special. "You used my college fund?" I asked slowly, trying not to raise my voice. "All of it. Well, most of it. There might be a little left. We haven't checked recently. But you're so smart, Eric. You'll get scholarships. Or maybe take a gap year and work. You always figure things out." I hung up the phone. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stood there in that break room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and let the betrayal sink in. I felt like a ghost. Like I'd never really existed in their world except as a convenient backup plan. When I tried talking to my dad, hoping maybe he'd be the voice of reason, he just shrugged. "It's Evan's big day, Eric. You'll have your turn." But when exactly was my turn? When I got into college, no one threw me a party. When I won a regional science competition, my mom barely looked up from her phone. But Evan wanted a fancy wedding, and suddenly they were willing to drain a fund they'd promised, sworn, was mine. I didn't go to the wedding. I didn't even RSVP. My parents sent me pictures anyway. Evan and his new wife standing in front of some ancient Tuscan vineyard, the whole family beaming around them. My seat was filled by some distant cousin. No one even asked where I was. That was the last time I spoke to them. I blocked their numbers, deleted the family group chat, and moved 2 states away. Got a job. Saved every penny. Worked nights. Took online classes. Slowly rebuilt what they took from me. I didn't need them. I was done pretending they cared. Years passed. I built a life. Not flashy, not perfect, but mine. I found a little apartment, made a couple friends, even adopted a grumpy cat named Newton who bites everyone except me. I kept my head down, just like I always had. And for the first time, it felt like peace. Until last week. It was a Wednesday morning. I just made coffee when there was a knock at my door. Not a polite knock. More like frantic pounding. I froze. Nobody ever visited me unannounced. I peered through the peephole. My parents. They looked older. Tired. My mom's makeup was smudged, and my dad looked like he hadn't shaved in days. I didn't open the door at first. Just stared. My heart was pounding, like my body already knew something was off. When I finally cracked the door open, my mom's eyes welled with tears. She stepped forward like she wanted to hug me, but I stayed behind the threshold. "Eric," she whispered. "It's your brother. He needs help." I didn't say a word. I just looked at them, the parents who'd stolen my future and handed it to someone else on a silver platter. And that's when she said it. Just like that day on the phone, with the same breathless entitlement. "We knew you'd know what to do. You've always been the independent one." And that's when every suppressed memory, every overlooked birthday, every ignored achievement, started boiling to the surface. But I didn't explode. I just let them in. Because if Evan needed help, well, maybe it was finally my turn. My turn to decide what happens next. And trust me, I'm not the same Eric they left behind. Not even close. I didn't want to let them in. I stood there, my hand on the doorknob, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. There was this moment, maybe 2 seconds, maybe 20, where my brain screamed shut the door, and I almost did. Almost locked it in their faces and walked away for good. But then my mom's face crumpled. And for the first time in years, she didn't look smug or composed. She looked scared. "It's Evan," she repeated, like I hadn't heard her the first time. "He's in trouble." And I don't know why, but I stepped aside. I told myself it wasn't for them. It was for closure, maybe. Curiosity. Pity, even. I told myself I was in control now. They stepped in like it was still their house. My dad looked around my apartment. Modest, clean, a little small but mine. And I saw the flicker of disappointment flash across his face before he masked it with a tight nod. My mom didn't even glance at the decor. She was already sitting on my couch, wringing her hands, waiting for me to sit across from her like this was just another family dinner and not the first time we'd spoken in over 3 years. I stayed standing. My dad cleared his throat. "It's bad, Eric." I looked at him. "What is?" "Evan. He lost the house. The cars. The business. Everything." I blinked. "What business?" "He was trying to start a sports agency." My mom piped in, dabbing her eyes with a tissue I didn't offer. "He said he had investors. Connections. But they all backed out. Then he took out loans. Lots of them. Some not very legal." I let that sink in. "So, what? You want me to give him money?" They both went quiet. The silence was answer enough. "I haven't heard from either of you in 3 years," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice level. "You stole my college fund. Left me to figure everything out alone. Now you show up at my door because Evan made bad choices, and suddenly you remember I exist." "Eric, please," my mom said, standing now, reaching for my arm like we were still close. "We didn't come here to fight. He's your brother. He's family." I stepped back. So was I. That shut her up. But this isn't where the story really starts. Not the breaking point. That came later. This was just the aftershock of everything that had been building for years. You see, growing up, Evan didn't just get more love. He got more everything. More freedom, more praise, more second chances. If I broke a vase, I was careless. If Evan did it, he was just being a boy. When I asked for piano lessons, I was told we couldn't afford them. When Evan wanted football camp, suddenly the budget opened up. I remember one time, freshman year of high school, I won a regional science fair. My project was about solar desalination, something I'd been working on for months. I came home, medal in hand, bursting with pride. My mom barely glanced up from her laptop. "That's nice, honey," she said. "Did you hear? Evan scored 2 touchdowns. That night, she made his favorite dinner. Not mine. And it just got worse. Senior year, I got accepted into an elite STEM program. They only took 40 students nationwide. I was so excited I couldn't sleep. I showed my parents the email. My dad patted me on the back and said, "That's great, son." Then he turned to Evan and asked if he'd decided on a prom tux yet. I kept telling myself it didn't matter. That once I left for college, I'd finally be free of all of it. That I could build a life on my own terms, away from their shadows. But of course, they found a way to take that from me too. When they used my college fund for Evan's wedding, it wasn't just money they stole, it was my future. They didn't just shift my path, they lit it on fire. I never told anyone, but the week I found out, I had a breakdown. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I called over 10 scholarship offices begging for help. I sold half my belongings. I worked double shifts at a grocery store where customers called me kid, like I wasn't trying to claw my way into adulthood. I felt humiliated, abandoned, and not once did they call to check on me. Not once did Evan. I didn't go to the wedding, obviously, but I saw the pictures. I think they made sure I did. My aunt tagged me in a Facebook album titled Evan and Bella's Big Day. I scrolled through 127 pictures of my family smiling, dancing, toasting champagne in the hills of Tuscany. My mom wore a custom dress. My dad rented a vintage sports car to drive Evan to the ceremony. There was a string quartet. It looked like a dream. It was funded with my nightmare. They didn't even mention me in the captions. Fast forward to now. They sat in my apartment begging me to help the very person who had everything handed to him. The same guy who used to call me Buzzkill Eric when I'd ask him to turn down his music while I studied. The guy who crashed my bike and told our parents it was my fault. The guy who got married with my money and didn't even send a thank you card. "You don't understand, Eric," my mom said softly. "He's in danger. Real danger." "What kind of danger?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I cared. "Loan sharks," my dad muttered. "Guys you don't say no to. He's been hiding out at a friend's place, but they're threatening to come after us now." I raised an eyebrow. "Why would they come after you?" He looked away. And then my mom did that thing she always did when she knew she was about to drop a bomb. She softened her voice and clasped her hands like a prayer. We co-signed. My stomach turned. "You what?" "For the last loan," she said quickly, like rushing would make it less awful. "He said it was a sure thing. He needed our help. And we thought if he got back on his feet, maybe he could help you too. We did it for both of you." The audacity. The sheer, blinding audacity. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had already sacrificed my future for Evan once, and now they were offering up their financial lives on the altar of his ego again, still expecting me to sweep in and fix it. "I don't owe you anything," I said, voice shaking now. "And I sure as hell don't owe him. He's your brother," my mom said again, like it was a magic word that erased consequences. But it wasn't just about Evan anymore. That night, after they left, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my old laptop, the one I'd used during high school. It was slow and clunky, and the screen flickered sometimes, but inside it were years' worth of files, folders, emails. Proof. Proof of every award I'd won that they ignored. Every recommendation letter I'd written for myself. Every rejection email I'd gotten after they drained my fund, and I tried to find another way. And among those files was something else. Something I'd forgotten I even had. A scanned copy of my grandparents' original college fund account summary. I stared at it for a long time. Then I remembered something my grandma once told me at a Thanksgiving dinner, years ago, when she was still alive. "We set up 2 funds. One for each of you. Equal amounts. No one's allowed to touch them but you boys. Not even your parents." My hands were shaking now. I opened a new browser tab and started researching. And what I found, that was the real breaking point. Because the fund, my fund, should have never been accessible to my parents. Not legally. Which meant only one thing. Someone forged my signature. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding so loud I thought I might pass out. They didn't just steal my future. They committed fraud to do it. The thing about hitting rock bottom is, you never quite realize you're there until you try to stand up, and nothing moves. For a while after I discovered what they'd done, that they'd not just lied to me, but forged my name to steal my college fund, I couldn't even think straight. I kept reopening the same scanned PDF of that original college fund document, like somehow the numbers would change. Like somehow it would turn out to be a mistake. That the betrayal hadn't gone as deep as it felt. But it had. And I knew it. For a few days, I couldn't sleep. I'd sit on my couch with Newton curled in my lap, just staring at nothing while my mind raced through memories like an involuntary slideshow. My 12th birthday party. Evan got a bike, I got socks. High school graduation. Evan got a new iPhone. I got a firm handshake. Every moment I'd brushed off as no big deal suddenly came roaring back, and now I saw it for what it was. Not just favoritism, not just neglect, but a pattern, a system, one where I was never meant to matter. It made me sick. And yeah, there was a moment, maybe longer than a moment, where I spiraled. I stopped showing up to my online classes. I turned off my phone. I ignored texts from the two friends I'd made in the city, both of whom probably assumed I'd ghosted them. I lived off cereal and instant ramen. My savings started dwindling fast. I didn't even realize I'd stopped checking my bank balance until my card got declined at the grocery store one night. That was the night I walked 3 miles home in the rain with a single can of soup in my backpack and felt like the most pathetic person alive. But something about that walk, wet shoes squishing with every step, the cold seeping through my coat, shocked me back to life. Not all at once. Not with some grand, motivational epiphany. Just a quiet resolve. The kind you whisper to yourself in the dark when no one else is listening. No more. The next morning, I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started making a list. It wasn't some fancy, color-coded spreadsheet. Just a Google Doc titled Rebuild. I wrote 3 bullet points. Figure out legal options. Get stable income. Reapply to school. That was it. That was all I could manage. But it was more than nothing. I started with the legal angle. I didn't have money for a lawyer, but I did some digging and found a free legal aid clinic at the local community center. I scheduled an appointment, brought all my documents, and met with a soft-spoken guy named Jordan who looked younger than me but clearly knew what he was doing. I showed him the scanned PDF, the bank statements, the forged withdrawal form, and the emails from my parents at the time they drained the fund. He listened without interrupting, occasionally scribbling notes, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he sat back and said, "Yeah, this is serious." I asked him what my chances were. He said, "Honestly, you have a case. It's fraud. And if that fund was legally in your name, and it looks like it was, they're in real trouble." I didn't know what I felt. Relief? Rage? Sadness? All I said was, "Good." He helped me file a formal complaint. The bank had a protocol for these situations: internal investigations, signatures to compare, account access logs. It would take time, but something in me shifted that day. Just the act of taking a step forward, of doing something, made the fog in my brain start to lift. Step 2, stable income. I'd been scraping by doing freelance tech support and the occasional coding gig, but it wasn't enough. So I reached out to an old professor from high school, a guy named Mr. Wren who had always encouraged me and once told me to come find him if you ever need a lifeline. So I did. I sent him an email explaining everything. Well, most of it. Left out the fraud part, kept it professional. Just said I was trying to get back on my feet and looking for work in the engineering or tech space. He replied within the hour. Said one of his former students now worked at a robotics startup 2 towns over, and they were always looking for part-time help with QA testing and back-end debugging. He offered to make an introduction. 3 interviews and a coding test later, I had a job. It wasn't glamorous, just 20 hours a week, mostly testing motor responses and writing internal scripts, but it paid better than anything I'd done before, and more importantly, it reminded me that I wasn't just Evan's shadow. I was smart, capable, valuable. Bit by bit, my life began to rebuild. I used what was left of my savings to enroll in a part-time data science certification program. I fixed up my resume, added the startup to my LinkedIn, and started collecting references. On weekends, I built passion projects, automation tools, small apps, and uploaded them to GitHub, slowly carving out a digital footprint that was mine alone. I didn't post anything about my family. I didn't make a dramatic announcement. I just moved forward. And something amazing happened. I started liking myself. Not in a cheesy, self-help book kind of way, but in a quiet, solid way. Like walking past a mirror and thinking, "Yeah, I'm proud of that guy." I adopted another cat, Newton's evil twin, a calico named Curie who hates everyone but him. I started cooking real meals. I even hosted a game night with coworkers, something I never would have imagined doing back when I was holed up in that dim apartment, spiraling into self-pity. There was one night, about a year into my rebuild, where I was sitting on the balcony of my new place, still modest, but bigger, brighter, with both cats curled up at my feet. I had a glass of wine in one hand and a job offer email pulled up on my phone from a company in Boston offering me a full-time position in machine learning. And I realized I hadn't thought about Evan in weeks. Not in a bitter way. Not with anger. Just not at all. He no longer lived rent-free in my head. That was the rise. But it wasn't the end. Because just when I thought I'd finally put it all behind me, I got a call from Jordan. The bank's investigation was complete. They confirmed the signature was forged. And not just that. They had video surveillance of my mom entering the bank the day the money was withdrawn. She handed over an envelope and smiled at the teller. When asked for ID, she produced a driver's license and a signed letter from me. Only the signature didn't match any on file. The bank was preparing to take action. Jordan asked me if I wanted to press charges. I didn't answer right away. It wasn't that I didn't know what I wanted. It's just, I hadn't prepared for it to actually work. For there to be consequences. For them to lose. I asked for a few days to think about it. And that's when they showed up at my door. Again. Same knock. Same faces. Only this time, there were no tears. Just panic. And behind it, something uglier. Entitlement. My dad stepped forward the second I opened the door. "You're going to ruin us," he said, like I'd stolen his future. My mom didn't even say hi. She just pushed past me and started talking like we were in the middle of a conversation. "You can't do this, Eric. You don't understand what you're setting into motion. We'll lose the house. The cars. Everything." I stared at her. "You already took everything from me." "It was a mistake," she snapped, suddenly angry. "We thought you'd understand. You're not like Evan. You don't need that kind of help." I didn't say anything. My dad ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. "Can't we just move on? We're family. Family." They always pulled that card when it was convenient. I looked at the two people who raised me, who smiled in wedding photos bought with stolen money, who erased me from their lives until they needed something. And I said the only thing that felt right. "You should go." And I shut the door. This time, I didn't hesitate. Because I wasn't the same person anymore. I was done being the backup plan. And for the first time in my life, they knew it. They didn't knock a third time. After I shut the door in their faces, I waited. Listened for footsteps. A shout. Some dramatic last-ditch plea for forgiveness. But nothing came. Just the low murmur of retreating voices and the elevator dinging a few minutes later. When I checked the peephole again, the hallway was empty. And so was I. Empty, but calm. I'd always imagined revenge as this hot, burning thing, rage-filled and blinding. But standing there with my back against the door, I felt cold. Focused. Like everything that had happened up to this point had stripped away the noise, the confusion, the doubts. All that was left now was the setup. See, that moment didn't come out of nowhere. Not really. For over a year, ever since I'd started digging into the college fund situation, I'd been keeping notes. Timelines. Names. Screenshots. At first, it was just for legal purposes. Jordan had told me to document everything. But over time, it became something else. Something sharper. I hadn't planned to use it. Not then. But things had changed. The legal side was already in motion. Jordan and his team had submitted the bank's findings to a civil court. There was no question of guilt now, only damages. But I realized something as I reviewed the case documents he'd sent me. Suing them wouldn't really hurt them. Not the way they'd hurt me. Sure, they might lose money, but they'd still play the victims. They'd tell their friends and neighbors how their ungrateful son was trying to destroy them. They'd spin the story into something tragic and noble. No, I didn't just want financial justice. I wanted the truth exposed. I wanted everyone to see what they were really like. So I started planning. The first thing I did was go dark online. Locked down all my social media accounts, removed photos, changed usernames. Not because I was afraid, because I wanted control. The ability to choose when and how the truth would come out. Then I reached out to my cousin Lily. She and I had been close growing up, but we drifted after high school. She lived 2 states away now, working as a freelance journalist. I wasn't sure if she'd even respond when I texted her. "Hey, it's Eric. I need to talk to you. It's about my parents and Evan." She replied within minutes. We set up a call that night. When I told her everything, from the stolen college fund to the forged documents to the bank's investigation, she didn't interrupt once. Just listened. Her face was unreadable, but I could see the tension in her jaw. When I finished, she let out a breath and said, "Holy crap. Yeah, you're telling me and Donna forged your signature and stole your tuition money to fund Evan's wedding?" "Yup. And they never told you? Never paid you back?" "Nope." She sat back in her chair, running a hand through her hair. "You know, I've always thought they treated you like an afterthought, but I never imagined it was this bad. It's worse than that, I said. They still don't think they did anything wrong. They showed up last week asking me to bail Evan out. Again. Lily blinked. Unreal. Then she leaned forward. What do you want to do? I hesitated. I want to tell the truth. I want people to know. Not just in court. I want to make sure they can't spin this into some sob story about how their evil son turned on them for no reason. She smiled. You came to the right person. Over the next week, Lily and I worked together. She helped me structure the story, build the timeline, gather corroborating details, fact-check every memory I had against emails, texts, and receipts. She said she wanted it to be airtight. Bulletproof. You're not just taking back your story, she told me. You're reclaiming your voice. At the same time, Jordan was preparing the civil suit. He said the bank's internal report was damning and that we had a strong case for damages, not just the stolen funds, but emotional distress, loss of educational opportunity, and fraudulent misrepresentation. Words that sounded cold on paper, but felt deeply personal to me. Still, I wanted more. And then, one night, I got a message that changed everything. It was from someone I hadn't thought about in years. Bella, Evan's wife. Well, ex-wife now. Her message was short. I heard what your parents did. I'm sorry. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed. Why now? She replied almost instantly. Because Evan did it to me, too. We met at a coffee shop the next day. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Like someone who'd finally stopped pretending. She didn't waste time. He drained our joint accounts, she said. Every last dollar. Told me he was investing it in crypto and some sports marketing thing. When I asked questions, he got defensive. Then he stopped coming home. I found out he'd been staying with a friend who turned out to be a girl from his gym. I didn't say anything. She took a deep breath. He left me with nothing. Filed for divorce the second I threatened legal action. I had to move back in with my parents. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I never blamed her. I knew how charming Evan could be. How convincing. She nodded. You were always kind to me. I remember that. I nodded back. So why reach out now? She slid a folder across the table. Inside were screenshots, emails, bank transfers, all of it tying Evan to shady financial practices, falsified invoices, dummy corporations, even a fake GoFundMe he'd created using a fake cancer story and funneled to his own shell account. I don't care what you do with this, she said. But if you're planning something, I want in. So now, I had everything. Legal backing, a documented paper trail, a journalist willing to tell the story, an ex-wife with receipts, and one last card up my sleeve. I hadn't told anyone this, not even Lily, but I'd been quietly recording my parents' visit to my apartment. I had the audio saved on a flash drive. Their voices, clear as day, admitting they co-signed illegal loans in Evan's name. My mom saying, "We knew you'd know what to do. You've always been the independent one." My dad whispering, "You're going to ruin us." I listened to it once. Then I smiled, because the setup was complete, and all that was left now was the strike. They never saw it coming. I didn't storm in with anger. I didn't scream or send them rage-filled texts. That's not how real revenge works. Not the kind that sticks. The kind that matters. No, I planned it like a chess game, quiet, methodical, and 3 moves ahead. It all started with Lily's article. She pitched it to a mid-sized investigative outlet, one of those online publications that prides itself on human interest stories and long-form journalism. They ate it up, spent weeks fact-checking, confirming the paper trail, interviewing Bella, cross-referencing documents from the bank, even reaching out to the college I was supposed to attend. The story that came out was titled, "The Invisible Son: How One Family's Golden Boy Was Funded with Fraud." It went viral within 48 hours. They didn't name names directly in the headline, but by the 3rd paragraph, my parents' full names were in black and white. Their town, their jobs, even a photo from Evan's wedding. The one where I should have been in the front row, but my seat had been filled by some cousin who hadn't spoken to me since. People noticed. First came the comments, thousands of them. Sympathy, disbelief, outrage. And then came the ripple effect. Old neighbors shared it. Family friends posted it. My mom's former coworkers started commenting things like, "I always wondered why Eric wasn't at the wedding," and "Donna always bragged about Evan's wedding but never once mentioned her other son." The fallout began fast. My parents were pillars of their community, or at least they thought they were. My dad was on the local HOA board. My mom ran a Facebook group for supportive parents of gifted children. That group banned her within hours of the article hitting the front page. The lawsuit was already underway, and with the article corroborating the timeline, the court moved quickly. Jordan filed a motion for expedited review due to financial misconduct and emotional distress. The bank submitted their findings directly: forged signatures, unauthorized access, violations of the custodial account terms. When my parents' attorney tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, the judge asked to hear the audio recording I'd submitted with my evidence packet. So I played it. In a silent courtroom, the jury and judge listened to my mother's voice say, "We knew you'd know what to do. You've always been the independent one." And my father's, "You're going to ruin us." No one said a word when it ended. The ruling came 2 weeks later. They were ordered to pay back every penny of the college fund, plus interest, plus damages for emotional distress. The judge even added a scathing comment about their egregious breach of parental trust and long-term psychological manipulation. The total? Just under $164,000. They didn't have it. And so, the court placed a lien on their house. Their accounts were frozen pending payment. Their credit was tanked. Their reputation was in flames. But I wasn't done. Remember Evan? He'd been laying low since Bella dropped the receipts on his fraudulent business schemes. But the article unearthed more than just old grudges. It brought attention. A few of the people he scammed came forward. One woman claimed he convinced her to invest $10,000 in a sports tech app that never materialized. A man said he gave Evan a loan for a company that didn't exist. They filed charges. The authorities opened an investigation. Bella handed over everything. She was eager, surgical. I think watching Evan squirm gave her the closure she'd never gotten from the divorce. And because I knew she'd taken the same hits I had, financial, emotional, I made sure she was credited in the article. She deserved to be seen too. Within months, Evan was indicted for wire fraud, tax evasion, and identity theft. The GoFundMe cancer scam turned out to be the nail in the coffin. His friend from the gym? She testified that Evan had used her name to open a fake LLC. The prosecutors moved quickly. He took a plea deal to avoid jail, but was ordered to pay restitution and serve house arrest for 18 months. He moved back in with my parents, or what was left of them. They'd downsized into a cramped rental apartment on the edge of town. The house was gone, seized and auctioned. My mom's online persona vanished. My dad resigned from the HOA board quietly, and when I checked the local news one night, there was a short blurb about a former community leader facing public backlash. As for me, I took the settlement money, not because I needed it anymore, but because it was mine. I used a portion to pay off the last of my student loans, donated another chunk to a scholarship fund for underprivileged students pursuing STEM. And then, I built something. With Bella's help, I launched a mentorship platform, one designed to help kids like me who fall through the cracks. Kids who are overlooked, underestimated, or treated like an afterthought in their own families. We called it Second Seat, a nod to the wedding chair I never got. It took off faster than I expected. Lily featured it in a follow-up piece 6 months later, and suddenly I was being asked to speak on podcasts, guest lecture at colleges, even advise on scholarship committees. I said yes to a few, not because I needed the spotlight, but because I knew someone like me might be listening, someone waiting for permission to take their power back. One day, a year after everything came crashing down, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. The handwriting was familiar. It was from my mom. She didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't even say she was sorry. It was just a page of rationalizations. We thought we were doing what was best. You never needed as much help. Evan was struggling. We only wanted to see both of our sons succeed. I folded the letter neatly and set it aside. I didn't need a response. I already had my closure. My revenge hadn't been loud or cruel. It had been clean, measured, just. They lost everything trying to build a life on the back of my sacrifice. And I built a life in spite of them. Newton and Curie still roam my apartment, knocking things over and keeping me grounded. Bella and I talk weekly. She's rebuilding too, one brick at a time. Lily's piece won a small journalism award, and she's working on a book. As for Evan, last I heard, he was working nights at a call center. No friends, no business, no fans, just a man sitting in the ashes of the empire he never earned. Funny how the golden child tarnishes fast when the spotlight goes out. And me? I wake up every morning, make my coffee, stretch my legs, and remind myself, I didn't just survive them. I outgrew them. And the best revenge is being nothing like them.